Anderson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Cass Allen over the top. Big side, down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen, big ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
What is up, LAFB fans? Will Decker, your host from the Bruin Bible, and draft is in session. We are here to talk about Bet Online and the good people behind the brand. Football season is officially back, and Bet Online remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player needs, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code LAFB to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. What is up, Bruin fans? This past weekend was one of the most incredible spectacles to watch on your television or watch live like myself did, Madman did. What an incredible weekend, just to kind of summarize it. The UCLA Bruins took down the Utah Utes 42-32. We had tweets going crazy in the drafts. We had some outstanding performances. And most importantly, it's probably the biggest UCLA win in, close to a decade. And that includes some of the USC games. That was the number 12 team they took down in the Utah Utes, and it proves legitimacy. We've moved up to number 11 in the country. We are just one spot away from the top 10 within this ranking system. And, we got the Madman here. We got Ryan and Dairud in the house. We got a fun group kind of talking about it. Jamal, you were at the game in the Chancellor Suite. You're taking pictures with Martin Jarman before the game. You're like a celebrity out there. Madman, how was this game to you as a UCLA alum?
Oh, it's so special, Will. We when you sort of have lived through 2 decades, 3 decades of UCLA football, there's a lot of notable people in this city. I remember Ron Sugar, the former CEO of Northrop Grumman, said UCLA football has been breaking my heart for 50 years. So we came in cautiously optimistic, but we also knew that, look, anything can happen with UCLA football. But as this game transpired, Will, just the electricity, the energy in the crowd was so palpable, 42,000 strong. But it was very evident that UCLA looked unstoppable on offense, that they could do whatever they wanted to do on the ground. And then that set up the ability to throw wherever they wanted to a plethora of different receivers. And ultimately, Utah would have to sort of go score for score, shot for shot. And eventually the clock works against you where you can no longer rely on that play action, which is Utah's bread and butter. And when you have to sort of go straight throw, and lo and behold, it sort of played out that way, that incredible fumble recovery to really feel like we got it. But how special is this? 11th in the country. And we knew, we've talked about this, the three of us at the beginning of the season. This was going to be a very special season. We had predicted 5-0 going into the Utah game. I had predicted a 10 wins regular season and then the possibility of more. And here we are, 6-0 with everything to play for. 4 such difficult games, and to be 2-0 already with 2 more to go. All the possibilities for a magical Bruin season. And I'm just on cloud 9 right now.
And we love to hear it. The first 6-0 start since the magical 2005 season. 6-0. Outside, knocking on the door of the top 10. And Rye or Die was in the parking lot tailgating with us too. Huge ties to the UCLA program. He loved what was going on. Rye or Die, give me your take, man. Just your first instincts coming off of a massive, massive win that just provides that UCLA is back in the national conversation when it comes to college football.
Well, I know this is on our network, but this is your show. Can I cuss on your show?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, in the words of DTR, this is our shit, as he said after the game, emphatically winning that game against Utah. I mean, it was amazing, Will. I mean, the environment before the game, this is a program, this is a city, this is a culture. This is a university that all this year has taken so much crap from the outside world about fan attendance, about football culture, about are they the right program to go to the Big Ten, and all this outside noise. And like, we've had to sit here and try to like defend them. And then, but you see the fan attendance and it was never great. And so seeing like a really solid group of fans, like maybe not the biggest numbers we've ever seen at the Rose Bowl. I know UCLA will just continue to grow in that this year anyway, but a good crowd, a raucous crowd, a fun crowd. And then just to look at the football product that was put on the field by Chip Kelly, by DTR, by Zach Charbonnet, by, Jake Bobo, by all these guys, plus the defense, stepping up when they absolutely had to. And it just, they put it all together in a game that was, we could argue the biggest win in a long time. I know the LSU win last year was a huge win in terms of just beating an SEC opponent for the first time in a long time, but obviously LSU didn't have the season down the stretch that everyone maybe thought. So it kind of lost its luster a little bit, and they lost the following week against Fresno State. Now this with back-to-back wins against top 15 opponents, moving in the top 11, like it feels like UCLA not only has arrived, but is here to stay for a little while. And the fact that, I'll just say for me personally, the fact this is an LA network and we cover both teams in college, USC and UCLA, the fact that USC people are saying, damn, that UCLA program might actually be better than we. And we are also ranked top 10 and 6-0. That tells you what this game meant for this program, for this city, for this university. And yeah, it's exciting time for Bruins fans.
Ryan, what's crazy about what you just said about the SC folks? We've got great SC folks on our network, Sua Cravens, Alfred Rowe, even folks like Reggie Bush who were, interviewing DTR and Charbonnet and what have you. And just seeing the tweets were so fun because obviously that Trojan spirit is still there. So they're always going to call UCLA Who CLA or Boo CLA. But they're like, man, Who CLA Utah is going to be on fire. Man, this team is going to be a problem. And to sort of see that vibe and that energy. And Ryan, I'll say it one step further. This is the biggest win UCLA has had since 2012, since that SC game 2012 that propelled UCLA to the Pac-12 championship game in Brett Hundley's freshman year. I would argue this is the biggest win since then in 10 years. And the script of the movie is starting to be written here. When you talk, as you said, the fan attendance, the celebrations, the Big Ten, the regions, it feels like it's been UCLA against the world in so many different ways in college football. And to start 6-0, to be underdogs these last 2 weeks at home and to prevail, and now to move forward. They're going to be an underdog again in 2 weeks against Oregon. I fully expect that to take place. But this underdog mindset and mantra and identity is starting to take place. And they got a coach named Chip, and they got a big chip on their shoulder, and they're hungry for more. And I can't wait to see what comes.
Nice.
So many areas we can start this with, but I got to start with the quarterback who put together the most impressive performance we've seen from him. Washington game was the best I'd seen up to that point. And then he just tops it in the following week against Utah, top 25 total defense. And I'll be the first to admit, the first 3 games of the season, did we get the same DTR from last year after these high expectations? I called him a preseason Heisman dark horse candidate. And, we get the Bowling Green game. It's kind of lackluster. South Alabama had its challenges. But when it came to push and to shove, when the Pac-12 finally opened up for DTR, he has brought his A game and has been outstanding thus far this year. And more importantly, in the game yesterday, 18 of 23 through the air, 299 yards, 4 touchdowns, and just kind of a, fourth quarter pick that didn't really matter as much at the end of the game. But if you're getting that version of DTR through the air, it's just a special, special thing that the offense can operate through. And I do want to say the first scoring drive of the game, it was just incredible to watch. I was out there with Sean on the other side of the Rose Bowl behind the Utah bench. And that pass he hit to Ezike on the sideline for a 49-yard gain. Find me a better DTR throw than that one, because he hit him in stride on a beautiful NFL look. And then the very next throw, he puts it between 2 defenders to TMA for 23 more yards. DTR was operating at its highest self. He had full control of the offense. It looked like a guy that has been here for 5 years and knows what the hell he's doing with the football. I'm going to start with you, Rye or Die. What did this performance from DTR mean to not only UCLA fans, but now the national media starting to recognize DTR and what he is capable of?
Look, when the season's over and when the draft comes, when it's his time, Caleb Williams, and you'll see where I'm going with this in a second, Caleb Williams is going to be the better quarterback, the better NFL prospect. He has all the tools. He's had a phenomenal season so far for USC, and his Heisman campaign keeps growing. But as of right now, through 5 or 6 weeks of the college football season, it is not a wrong statement to say that right now, DTR is the better quarterback in Los Angeles than Caleb Williams, which may sound far-fetched from those that don't watch the actual games. But even statistically, it's not far-fetched because they're very similar statistically. And what DTR has been able to do with this UCLA team, and the fact that now him and Jake Bobo are on the same page, which you could tell there was some chemistry stuff early on, and we knew there would be some, not necessarily growing pains, but just some getting on the same page and feeling comfortable with one another. Like he lost Greg Dulcich, he lost Kyle Phillips last year, where his two go-to guys, brings in some new players, and now we can see him and Jake Bobo. The tight end room is starting to click a little bit better. We're seeing Kaz Allen and Cam Brown get involved more. But DTR's, I mean, here's one thing I'll say, Will, that we kind of talked about after the game. That, what was it? It was in the fourth quarter, I believe. There was that intentional grounding. There was just a bad throw, like basically a snap, defender in his face. He had a running back in the flats. He could have thrown his foot. Instead, he just throws it out of bounds, uncalled for intentional grounding. The DTR of old, that would have caused an implosion on that drive. Probably would have taken a sack right after that, trying to do too much, saying, I made a big mistake. I need to put this team on my back and do something else, taking a sack, maybe throwing an interception. At the very minimum, it probably would have been a 3-and-out from there. What does he do it this year? The very next play, and give credit to Chip Kelly for how he schematically drew it up.
Yeah.
Very next play, cross a route to Logan Loya, 70-yard touchdown. I mean, that's the DTR maturation now that we're seeing this year that we didn't see in years past, that we all thought we were going to see. By we all, I mean the three of us on the show. And we didn't necessarily see it a ton through the first 3 weeks. But now that we're 6 weeks in, we're seeing it. And not only he a dark horse Heisman candidate, he's a legitimate Heisman candidate now. And with 2 big games against Washington and Utah, and if he has another one against Oregon, we may see the 1-2 punch of Caleb versus DTR as the Heisman clash, if you will. And it's amazing thing. So he's been on a great campaign so far through 6 weeks.
He has been fantastic through 6 games, 1,500 yards through the air, 15 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. And the stat that's really been mind-blowing to me, 71% completion rate on 150 passes. That is outstanding work. I mean, if you're in the mid to high 60s, that's batting 300, 315 in baseball. If you're doing this is batting title territory when you're at 71. Madman, picking back off Rye or Die, what was this performance like for DTR, for the national media, and for all of his critics around the country?
Will, I don't care about the stats. I don't care about his stats at all. What I care about is 2 things. Because he could always make the throw. He could always do the spectacular in terms of run. He could always be very improvisational. He could always make 1 great play. And then, as Ryan said, you'd have 2 bad plays. Where this performance is historic for me in terms of his legacy is the resilience and the tenacity. And the resilience, Ryan, you demonstrated that with the intentional grounding and then very next play going back to Loya. There were 2 other instances where he demonstrated an incredible amount of resilience. There was that rollout to the right midway through the game. He fired that ball to Bobo, back of the end zone, and Bobo dropped it. Old DTR would have said, oh, man, I'm going to have to scramble. I'm going to have to do something crazy. Very next play, he's in the pocket, goes through his progressions, boom, finds Cam Brown for the touchdown. That resilience was so huge, right? Then you take it sort of 1 step further. UCLA driving on another possession. They had a critical false start that turned a 3rd and 2 at the Utah 11 into a 3rd and 7. Old DTR maybe that snowballs and becomes a field goal or a sack and a long field goal. Maybe you miss the field goal and the snowball effect takes place. He inside curl, finds Bobo, dart, touchdown. 3 plays there where something bad happened. And then the very next play, he outperformed what the expectation of that play was. And so the resilience to me is the thing that I'll always remember. The second thing is the tenacity of him not being satisfied by the Washington performance and coming in here with an equivalent chip on his shoulder, an equivalent hunger, an equivalent focus, an equivalent preparation, and putting together an even better performance. And then saying after the game, we're not satisfied. We want top 10. We want top 5. We want top 2. So to me, that mindset of him wanting more is so significant to me. And so to me, this transcends the statistics, but I'll always remember this one statistic. He had as many incompletions in that game as touchdowns. And he would have had more touchdowns than incompletions if not for that garbage play at the end. And so for me, that's what I'll remember as this mindset shift of DTR, finally second half of year 5. And I said it, the trilogy, and we're 2 down. He's top 5 Heisman right now. It's him, it's Caleb, it's Bryce, it's CJ, it's Hooker from Tennessee. Yep. He puts together one more big game and beats Oregon and gets to 3 straight top 15 victories. Dorian Thompson-Robinson will be the front runner for the Heisman Trophy going into November. You can take that to the bank if he puts that performance together against Oregon. And holy moly, who would have thought that just 3 short weeks ago?
And can I add one thing, Will?
Yeah, go for it.
Just one thing. And you talked about the 2 things, Jamal, the tenacity and whatnot. And I just want to add one more thing to that, and it's trust. Yep. I don't think before he had the trust, and it's not that he didn't believe in his teammates, but he put too much on himself when those bad things happened. Like, okay, now I need to make a big play. And now we've seen him say, I trust my teammates to also make a big play. And I just have to do my job. They're going to do their job. And so that's, I think, what helps a lot too. So sorry, Will, I just wanted to add that in there.
Dude, of course. And just to add one more statistic to it, he just broke Brett Hundley's all-time touchdown record too for UCLA. So congratulations is in order for our guy DTR for making plays. Going to transition to another guy. And we always never start with him somehow, but he always is the most important key in the cog for how this offense runs. And that's Zach Charbonnet. And I was really breaking it down, the tape after this game, and just the big runs this guy possessed in this game. The 2 40-yarders obviously come to mind immediately. But I would be hard-pressed to find a better performance by a Pac-12 running back in the last 5 years than what he did today. And for any NFL scout or quote-unquote expert that says this guy is not a top 5 running back going to the NFL draft last year, you got to be kidding me, because nearly touched 200 yards against a team that its identity is the defense, the top 25 in the country. And Charbonnet was a madman out there, no pun intended for our own madman. 21 carries, 198 yards, nearly touched 200, and had a touchdown of his own. He was outstanding and running at full steam ahead in a way that we have not seen thus far this year. He's saving his best performances for the biggest games. Madman, I'm going to start with you. We have DTR as the potential Heisman candidate if it goes well against Oregon next week. Is he in the Doak Walker Award conversation? Because I think he entered his name back in with that performance against Utah.
You know what's so special about this question, Will, that you prose so eloquently, and what is special about this team is that Dorian Thompson-Robinson is this team's Heisman Trophy winner, but Zach Charbonnet is this team's MVP.
Yeah.
And it was evident to anyone that understood football at the level that the 3 of us understand and others, that Zach Charbonnet was the reason UCLA won this game. It was the characteristics of DTR of making sure this team was on schedule and trusting his teammates. But schematically, tactically, his ability, and I'm talking about Zach Charbonnet, his ability to find seams up the middle and then bounce it outside and then use his feet in terms of yards after contact, he had 198 yards in this game. And the 240-yarders obviously were sort of the big home run hits. But his yards after contact in this game had to have been north of 40 yards. And his ability to finish these runs was so special. It's what allowed the Ezekes, the Logan Loyas, the Cam Browns, Bobo to loosen up a little bit, to keep that Utah defense off balance and do things that were completely uncharacteristic of them. Utah going for it on fourth down consistently in the second half was an acknowledgement that they could not stop Charbonnet and then the DTR pass game off of Charbonnet. The fact that Utah was burning timeouts with 1 minute to go in the second quarter in a 14-10 game because they wanted to steal an extra possession because they knew they weren't going to be able to stop this team was a testament to Zach Charbonnet. He's the best running back in the country. He and Bijan Robinson are going to battle it tooth and nail. And yes, resoundingly yes, he is very much back in the Doak Walker conversation. Through 6 games, 615 yards. He's averaging 103 yards per game. And again, as I mentioned, I had predicted 175 carries for Zach Charbonnet from game 5 onwards. He's at 20 plus last week, 20 plus this week, and that's only going to continue.
And it was just the momentum runs that he provided. They're keeping their foot on the Utah's neck on those 40-yarders, keeping the momentum within the grasp of UCLA. Even in the third quarter, that first touchdown run, he kicked it out to the outside. And if he had maybe 2 yards of extra space, that defender didn't have a chance next to him on the right sideline. He would have punched that one in for 6. Zach Charbonnet is the reason this offense runs like a well-oiled machine. Rye or die, give me your take, because we've talked about this for 2 years now, Ryan. We'll text it out. Charbonnet is our guy, and I even made the big statement. He has surpassed Dulcich as my all-time favorite now for the blue and gold. Give me your thoughts on our guy Charbonnet, Rye or die.
I somehow have people that have tweeted at me that Zach Charbonnet is not even a top 5 back in this future draft class, which is just tells me they don't watch football and maybe just are too much in the data and analytics. But even if you want to look at the data and analytics, the dude missed an entire game against an opponent where he probably would have had over 200 yards in that game, didn't play, and still ranks 13th in the nation in rushing yards, only has 87 carries. He has 23 less carries than Bijan Robinson and has only 30 less yards. He has 7.1 yards per carry, which is can be an overrated statistic unless you look at what actually Zach Charbonnet does on a game-to-game basis. It's unreal what this guy does. He pushes the pile no matter what. He's a guy that's never going to lose yardage. If it looks like he's only going to get 1 yard, he gets 3, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but it means a lot when you don't want those 3rd and long situations, because you get those 1st and 10s and those become 2nd and 7s and those become 3rd and 4s. And then all of a sudden it opens the playbook up for Chip Kelly, DTR, and Zach Charbonnet to do a lot of different things. So, to me, he's the best running back in the country. I know I probably have some bias in there. I think he's a 1st-round pick, but the running back position may no longer be a 1st-round pick, just that we've seen the shift finally, kind of after the Ezekiel Elliott going very early, kind of the last great running back to be taken that early. And we've seen that shift a little bit now, but based just purely on talent, on intangibles, on size and speed and power, on what he does for the offense, he is a 1st-round talent. And he is absolutely a Doak Walker candidate. And what he did against Utah, should have had 200 yards. Obviously, they tried to get him there. It finished with 198. It's special what he does. And he's so important for this offense. And he is a big reason. We just talked a long segment about DTR and his maturation. He is a huge reason why DTR's maturation. And when he announced coming back, that was a huge reason why DTR announced to come back, because they knew them together was a special thing for this Bruins team and could really make this offense go and could really make this team go and potentially have the greatest Bruins season we've seen in quite some time.
Ryan, what you just said in terms of his importance, let's just quantify it for 1 second. UCLA is 6-0. Last year, they were 8-4. So since Charbonnet has been on campus, they're 14-4. He didn't play 1 game. When Charbonnet goes for 100 plus yards, UCLA is 11-0. When he's under 100 yards, UCLA's 2-4. That's all you need to know about the importance of Zach Charbonnet.
And it's just the little things he's added to his game. Like he always, was able to catch passes last year, but I've even seen a growth in his pass catching ability from last year to this year. And just turn on the tape from this pass game. Some of the pass blocking stuff he was doing as a running back will make NFL experts and scouts jaws drop. This guy is a complete back. Maybe he doesn't have the quote unquote home run speed, but find me a more complete back in this draft than Zach Charbonnet on all 4 levels. We love our guy Charbonnet. And I want to pivot now to another guy that's been kind of hated on and doubted on, and some of it has been warranted. Chip Kelly. He had a very rough start for the program, but just some of the play calling we saw yesterday was a masterclass. And I'm talking about after, Dorian gets the penalty for throwing it away, we get a Logan Loya 70-yarder wide open, yards after catch. I mean, I could have ran that 40 yards myself. It was a beautiful play call. The pitch play to Keegan Jones on the outside to get the 24 yards on that. The QB sneak on 3rd and 2 on the first drive that Dorian had that got 7 yards. A masterclass of calling an offense. And, we had Brentley Wiseman on last week who's saying, find me 4 or 5 guys that are better calling an offense than Chip Kelly is, and just another 500-plus yards of total offense performance. The red zone stuff was just impressive. Every time we went to the red zone outside of, that first trip where Barmira, missed off the left side of the bar, it was almost like we cashed in every single play. And the Bobos, the Cam Browns, all those guys came up big with DTR. Jamal, I'll start with you. Chip Kelly, what was it like watching just a genius at work?
Well, he still has it. It was never gone. He just needed his type of players, and he needed a little bit of time. And we've talked about this now for a couple of years, where we live in this world of instant gratification. And it's in sports, it's in culture, it's in life. And everybody was sort of calling for Chip's head. And all he really needed was some time to get the appropriate talent that he needed. And that was on full display on Saturday, where, again, his ability to use Charbonnet and Keegan Jones in pitch situations, his commitment to the run in the second half of using the pass to set up the run. Look, we talked about Charbonnet having 22 carries. DTR had 23 attempts. Okay, you want to talk about mathematical balance and beauty there. I mean, it was a masterclass in what he was able to do. And I think that Chip has been not just play calling a game, he's been play calling a season. And what I mean by that is he has been very intentional, and it's obvious to me, about him getting those 8 different receivers to catch touchdown passes over the course of the first 4 games. Because when you run into elite competition and you have a game plan where you're, Phillips on Bobo, it was obvious that Utah was shadowing there. Their whole focus was on Bobo. And Chip used that to his advantage and said, you know what, we're going to find some stuff on Bobo's side of the field where the tight end's going to be able to leak out, where I'm going to go bunch. And I'm going to have Bobo sort of take up some space, take up some defenders, and leave some room to operate. What everyone forgets to see, the way Bobo was able to clear out space and defenders on that Loya cross for the 70-yarder, that was a mathematician, that was a chess master moving pieces on the board. And he's been able to do that now because he's got better chess pieces. He's got a queen. He's got a couple bishops. He's got a castle. He's got some weapons now finally to be able to do this. And for a team that has prided itself defensively over the years in Utah, they shut down Oregon last year. They've taken great pride in being that next Stanford. They look completely inept and lost defensively. They had no idea what was coming next. UCLA was scoring at will the second half of that game, Thriller, and it's a testament to the great Chip Kelly. And he gets it, man. He gets it on the field. He gets what UCLA is doing off of the field, the type of student athletes to go after. And I'm so happy that the great Martin Jarman has trusted him to give him some more time and we're starting to reap the benefits of a guy who's still a top 5 offensive mind in this sport.
299 yards passing, 203 yards on the ground. Just a game of perfection, a chef's kiss of offensive magic. Ride or die. Tell me your thoughts on Chip Kelly, because the waters were murky for him for a while, and it has been even for a lot of the fan base, coming into Pac-12 play. I think hopefully some of these wins have lessened the seats that Chip Kelly is on, despite the extension that Jarman was able to fork over.
Yeah, Jamal mentioned it. Give Chip Kelly a lot of credit, because boosters and fans and everyone wanted Chip Kelly out. And he decided, no, I'm going to put my faith in this guy. I believe in what we're building. And, that's why if you change direction last year, this is not a 6-0 football team. This is 6-0 because of Chip Kelly, because of what he built. And before I get into what he's doing now, people have to realize, yes, the pride of UCLA is great. It's a great program. It's a great school, great university, but it's not USC when it comes to football. I know people compare, well, look at what Lincoln Riley's done in one offseason. They went from a dumpster fire to the 7th ranked team in the nation. UCLA, maybe if they were to go and spend money on Lincoln Riley, that could happen, but Chip Kelly needed time to build exactly what he wanted. And maybe could have happened a little faster than 4 seasons, but hey, here we are now. And here we are seeing that this guy still absolutely understands how to call an offense, absolutely understands how to run a football team. Morgan Scalley, the defensive coordinator for Utah, I saw a lot of people out there, Utah fans specifically, and, I'm not going to sit here and try to point fingers or tear people down, but everyone's like, man, Utah lost this game. UCLA is good, but Utah lost this game. Their defense inept, this. I'm like, no, I think it's just because Chip Kelly and UCLA put on a masterclass of how to run offensive football. What they did through the air, on the ground, the diversion, the different type of plays that they ran were just so well thought out, so well orchestrated. As you mentioned, Jamal, the type of players that he has doing certain things. You have the size of Bobo, the speed of Kaz Allen and Cam Bound, the power of Zach Charbonnet. It's you have so many different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punches, all at different levels on the offense. And then we've seen the offensive line really improve and progress through this season, I wouldn't say it was a concern in the offseason. It was definitely a lot of overturn. And then after those first couple of weeks, it became a concern. And now we've seen this group really step up. And, hats off to the coaching staff there, and hats off to these young men who have really taken on themselves. And last thing I'll say about Chip, he's an offensive guru. We know that. They haven't scored under 32 points the entire season. They've averaged over 40 points over 6 games. But you look at the hire of Bill McGovern, and it was met with a lot of criticism because it was a guy that he knew from his days in Philly. It was an old buddy that he brought on, similar to his last old buddy that he brought on that stepped away. And I'm not going to sit here and say this defense is by any means a powerhouse defense, but they seem to get the job done when they have to. And they run kind of a Tampa 2 style system now that is not run hardly at all in college football. And it kind of, in some respects, can give some of these offenses fits that we saw against Utah with that beautiful interception that was a disguised linebacker look in the middle where he was disguised and he jumped out and got that interception deep in the red zone.
Yeah.
And then they had, that opportunistic fumble recovery. And so, Chip knew, I still am not saying it was the best hire in the world or this is the best defense in the world, but give credit to where credit's due. The hiring of Bill McGovern at least brought some comfort, some sanity, some, expectations for this defense where we at least now know that this is a defense that's not going to give up big plays, because they're not doing that this year like they did in years past. They're keeping things in front of them. They're giving up some yardage, yes, but they're making opportunistic plays and they're holding when they need to hold that we've seen now in back-to-back weeks. And so that's the other side of Chip Kelly where it's okay, give credit to that because he is the head coach, not just the offensive coordinator. And now we are looking more and more like a complete team. Still work to be done to get to the next level to where we want to be, but it's impressive. And yeah, Chip Kelly is the right man for the job. And I know the three of us here are thrilled that he's the head coach for more years to come.
Chip looking great in Westwood right now. His 6th straight victory to start off the season at the Rose Bowl. We're going to kind of pivot this a little differently. Usually Madman and I get 3 game balls each for this, but we're each going to get 2 on this. And I'm going to start with the guy, Madman. You get your first game ball. You can go any which way or direction for players that are deserving of their efforts for a huge upset over the Utah Utes at the Rose Bowl. Who are you going with in first on the first game ball, Madman?
Thriller, I think that, we've sort of said it in a number of ways, but I had gone with an individual sort of for one of the previous games, but I have to go this time with Zach Charbonnet. I know it's not the most creative. Again, it's probably Captain Obvious. I should be wearing those Captain Obvious shirts and, being on those bad commercials saying this, but Zach Charbonnet was absolutely phenomenal and really the linchpin of everything that UCLA was trying to do in terms of creating that balance. When you talk to any great offensive play caller, what's the first thing that they want is they want balance, whether that is Lincoln Riley, whether that's Chip Kelly, whether that's Jimbo Fisher when he actually remembered how to coach, whether that's anyone else, everyone is striving for balance, and you're not allowed to have that balance if you don't have the ultimate bell cow in Zach Charbonnet. He really took the bully and took him to the woodshed. That's the best way I can describe it. And this is now a nasty offense and a finesse offense. And I don't think there's another offense in this conference that can say that they're both of those things, USC included, Oregon included. And that's why we have such cautious optimism here moving forward. I got to go with my guy, Zach Charbonnet.
Charbonnet, game ball number one, well-deserving too. Offense runs through the run. And we got to go to our guy, ride or die, for game ball number two. A lot of choices here, man. You can go with a variety of different picks. Who are you going with and why?
So I'll stick with the offense to start. And I don't think this is a cop-out because it's usually what coaches do, but I'm going to give the game ball the entire offensive line. I mean, you mentioned everything, Jamal, about Zach Charbonnet and how great he is. But when you're an offensive line and you have over 200 yards on the ground and you throw through the air for basically 300 yards and protect your quarterback and keep him clean throughout the game. And when you've been kind of that talked about black eye of this offense, and that's the reason why this offense won't go. And the issue with the Bruins is the offensive line, and can they protect and can they do this? And they step up against a quote unquote bully defense and a Stanford-like style defensive line and someone that wants to be that SEC style of, punch you in the mouth defense in Utah, and you step up and you get over 500 yards of offense, 200 yards on the ground. Got to give the game ball to the offensive line because I'm so impressed with how this unit has improved from week 1 to now week 6 exponentially. It's unbelievable. Our concerns after week 1 were very high for this offensive unit, rightfully so. I mean, they did not look great in that first game against Bowling Green, and what they did that week and what they look like now is so impressive. And, as a fan, but more so as an analyst and as someone that covers the team, I'm proud of how this unit has responded and taken ownership and really improved. So game ball, the offensive line.
And shout out Tim Drevno, the offensive line coach that came actually formerly of USC and Michigan. He has done a heck of a job building this group up from week 1. Game ball, I think a lot of people think I'm going to go DTR here, and DTR is a dark horse Heisman candidate, as we mentioned. I think he's well deserving of, a game ball in general. But the guy I'm going to go with, Darius Muasau on the defense, the transfer from Hawaii. And he just set the tone. He made the 2 biggest plays all game on defense. The interception, it looked like a ball hawking safety dropping back on a Tampa 2 coverage where, Utah's driving the field. You're getting the, oh, man, here we go again type of, gut feelings. And then he makes that play, and it felt like the Rose Bowl just erupted again, and the spirit was back with UCLA football. He was second on the team, with 8 total tackles, only to Mo Osling, who is another story for a different time. He has been here since 2017, so we got to talk a little Mo Osling maybe later.
He's my age.
Yeah, he's been at school. He's like a lawyer at this point. He's going to law school at UCLA. Yeah. He went undergrad as well, but the play he made at the end of the game, too, the Jalen Davies fumble return that he punched out for Jalen Davies to allow to go to the outside. Madman, you got to tell me, because you've been to a lot more Rose Bowl games than I have. That was the loudest I've heard the Rose Bowl as a fan. The place erupted. You could feel all 55,000. It felt like a mini earthquake for what Muasau ultimately forced on that play. two huge plays that just can't be quantified for what those meant to UCLA. So Mwasow, game ball number 3. Where are you thinking with that pick, man? I thought Mwasow was fantastic.
Absolutely, Will. I mean, he was absolutely special. And both of you guys, I really like what you've sort of brought up here in terms of, because they are running this Tampa 2 style. And I think that it's been McGovern's receptiveness to understand his personnel. And the key linchpins to be able to do that have been Mwasow and Latu. And he wasn't sure what he had, right? We knew Mwasow was a special kid, transfer, 100-plus tackles, but it wasn't Power 5. With Latu, we weren't sure about his medical history. And so now after a few weeks, you know what you have. Absolutely. Mwasow is so special. We knew for this team to get to where it needed to go, to threaten to win the Pac-12, to be into November with a real opportunity to play in that Pac-12 championship game and go to the Rose Bowl, Mwasow was going to have to be the anchor, the captain of the defense. And my goodness, how big he came up with in doing so. You mentioned the pick. You mentioned the forced fumble, but just he was all over the field, stepping up and tackling Tavion Thomas when he had to, stepping up and having good center of gravity and good base to deal with Bernard when he had to, dropping back in coverage and identify where Vele was when he had to. Just did a little bit of everything. Completely agree.
Awesome. Well, we're through the first round of game balls. Game ball number 2 going to the Madman. Who are you going with and why for game ball number 4 officially?
I'm going to go with the secondary. And as a unit, Mo Osling and his merry band of brothers. And here's why. Came in at halftime of the game. Martin Jarman comes into the chancellor's box to just sort of let us know how things are going. And he says, I'm really nervous about the fact that Blaylock got ejected on the 3rd play of the game with that targeting, because Blaylock was really the captain of that secondary in terms of knowing where guys go, positions where they are. Blaylock and Mwasow have a great relationship in terms of the X's and O's, the tactics of really making sure everyone is where they need to be. And we know the way this game is going, if one team can get 2 stops in the second half, that team ultimately is going to win. That's what Jarman told me personally at halftime. And for that secondary to step up, Cam Rising did not have a passing touchdown. We saw a little bit of Vele. Dalton Kincaid made some unbelievably difficult catches in traffic, across the middle, down the sideline. That's an NFL kid. But the way that secondary limited Utah was only able to get things off of play action early in the game, and they were aided by some penalties on their last 2 drives. There was that critical offsides. There was a questionable pass interference call, which I thought was very clean. Live, that ball wasn't catchable and shouldn't have been called. But the way the secondary competed, Utah got nothing easy. And whenever they got something, it was really due to some exceptional individual effort. They made Utah work so hard, and to limit Cam Rising to no touchdowns and limiting him even in the red zone to have to be their primary runner, their primary weapon. Mo Osling and his band of brothers gets a huge game ball. Much maligned they've been over the last few weeks. They stepped up in a huge way.
That they did. And I wanted to know if you guys felt the same way. I got very similar vibes from Cam Rising, kind of a more scrambling version of Ben Roethlisberger, where big-bodied quarterback, you get a couple guys in the backfield, and he'll somehow escape it with a run, or he makes a play, with his arm. And those 2 touchdown runs, Cam Rising, to his credit, was phenomenal in this game when Utah needed it most. But through the air, UCLA's pass defense really did everything in their power to stifle the offensive attack through the air for Utah. Ride or die, game ball number 5. Where are you going, my brother?
Yeah, and just as piggyback that, like, Cam Rising gives me like poor man vibes of Cam Newton, if people can kind of see that, where it's like he doesn't have the most prolific arm, like not the most accurate passer, but makes big plays when you need him, and obviously can extend plays with your legs, and is a big body guy that can break tackles. It just kind of has that vibe to me a little bit. But game ball number 5, I mean, DTR's getting one. So do you want me to talk about him or do you want to talk about him?
Go for DTR, my man. He's well deserving. He should have been one of the first ones, but
We know he's getting one. So
we know he's getting one. We know he's getting one.
All right. So I'll let you then finish with talking about someone else because I'm not going to talk too much time because we already talked about DTR at the top of the show and how great he was. But obviously getting a game ball here, 299 yards, 4 touchdowns. The pick 6 at the end was, on a 4th down where they're just trying to basically not even salt the game. The game was already over, but just like run the clock out and they kind of do an out route that he misreads. And so I'm not even going to count that, but what a phenomenal game. We talked about him beforehand, the maturation that he's shown not just all season, but specifically in this game with some of the mistakes that happened and then not faltering and showing that big game ability right the next play and having big key moments immediately in the positive realm, which we did not see in the past, specifically against Utah. Obviously did not play last year because of being injured. And so we saw the backup play that game. But in 2019, the game where UCLA got blown out in Salt Lake City, he had that 50-yard loss for a fumble recovery for a touchdown. And so seeing him now complete the mission, at least against Utah, and the mission's not done because the season still has a lot of winning to go and they have a lot of winning left to do. But to see him complete mission by mission by mission, it's very exciting. It's very one of those. It's just a special thing to watch, and it's a fun thing to be a part of. And the fact that we've been able to not only watch him but watch this team, and now see him continue to do that and do that this week. And one question I'll ask you both before going to you, Jamal, or for you, Will, for the last game ball. We talked before the year. I can't remember if it was on this show or on another show, but how absolute dark horse candidate. But it was like, how much is DTR an NFL prospect? He'll definitely be in training camps no matter what. Just for the talent level, he'll be there. He'll get a whether it's a walk-on or a late 7th, 6th round pick. But I would argue now, through 6 weeks, that he has maybe played his way into that mid-round consideration and can absolutely play his way higher and higher up. So before I go to you, Will, with the final game ball, what do you guys think about that? Has he started to show that he's an NFL level quarterback now with his play?
If he continues to make throws like he made, to Ezekiel up the sideline, TMA, as I mentioned at the top of the show, he's an NFL prospect. And, the red zone, it's the most condensed area of the field. It's hard to make throws in that area. And he was lights out in the red zone, 4 touchdowns, outside of the Loya one, 3 of those coming in the red zone. Should have had another one to Bobo, but Bobo dropped it. So he could have had 4 touchdowns, all in that 10 to 15-yard tight, condensed area space. He had a rocket arm this weekend, and it really showed. I think DTR continues this up. He continues to show up defenses that NFL experts and scouts really look at and really value. Yes, he can be an NFL prospect. The talent's always been there. We're finally seeing it kind of come to fruition this year in year 5. Madman, you got any thoughts?
Ryan, it's all about, for me, it was about consistency, game over game. What was this guy's level of understanding of quality defenses? What was his ability to read through progressions? And what was his hunger to get better? I think those were the 3 things I was looking at the most moving forward. And he's checked all of those boxes for me. And so for me, I want the best for that kid. And I want him to go as high as possible. But there's even a scenario, guys, where he might even be better off being an undrafted free agent because he needs to find the right coaching staff and the right system that understands and appreciates him. Because when I look at the landscape of the NFL and I look at Kyler Murray and I look at Jalen Hurts and I look at Trey Lance and I look at Willis, I look at these guys, it's a similar type of skill set. One guy may run a little bit faster. One guy may throw the ball a few yards further. But when you talk about that dual threat ability and the ability for the spectacular, the difference between all of those prospects, I would argue at this early stage, is the situation that they're in and the expectations that are placed upon them at this particular stage, in addition to good fortune with health and all of those other things. And so if he can put this consistency game over game together, because nothing replaces on the field performance. You cannot win a combine and be a great prospect. I think we've seen that now with some of these young men that are in the NFL. There's no substitute for putting the games together. He's doing that, and he's working on the things that he needs to be working on. So if he can put another 6 together that he's put together here these last few weeks, there's really a plethora of opportunities that opens up for him.
DTR will be monitoring his draft prospects on Draft is in Session, another podcast for LAFB. Got to plug it right there. Final game ball, fellas. And it's a game where there's a lot of different areas we can go with this. I do want to shout out some guys that aren't going to be my game ball, but are well deserving of one. Carl Jones Jr. had that huge sack on the first drive against Utah. I thought he was fantastic off the edge. Gary Smith Jr. had 2 huge stops up the middle in the run defense. Number 58 was all over the field making plays. Really loved what I saw from the Duke transfer out there doing some things. Jake Bobo is not my final game ball. He was fantastic in the red zone, 2 touchdowns. Also dropped 1, maybe 2 potentially if you look at the one that was broken up on 3rd and goal that was not as egregious as the main one that he dropped. Could have had 4 touchdowns. But my final game ball, I'm going to Kaz Allen. And it was just the momentum he brought with every touch he had of the football. A couple huge catches that extended
Special
first
teams.
rounds. And yeah, to get to it, these special teams with him, he had 3 kickoff returns for 103 yards, averaged about 34.3 yards a return. And 2 of those went to midfield at very crucial times. First play after halftime, gets it to around the 40, 45-yard line, gets the momentum rolling again right out of half, gets UCLA out a great start. And it was the second time that Utah had scored in the second half. I think it became 25-21. It was very close at that point. Kaz Allen gets the kickoff and goes right back to the 40-yard line, putting us right back where we need to be to start a great drive. From a momentum standpoint, Kaz Allen brought the thunder this weekend. Kaz Allen's a stud. We love seeing him. We hadn't really seen a lot of him since that opening game against Bowling Green. It was nice to get him back on the field and even go back to the USC game last year. When big games come along, Kaz Allen delivers for the UCLA Bruins, and he brought the thunder and the rain for the UCLA Bruins this week. That's it, boys. We did the game balls. Any other lasting thoughts on this UCLA historic victory? I'll start with you, Madman.
Well, I just want to say one thing, and it's interesting. A lot was said this week from a lot of different folks about this team and about their opponent. And I'll say one thing, and you guys will understand what I'm saying right now. And I want to say to the fans, let's embrace this underdog mindset. We were underdogs 2 weeks ago. We were underdogs last week. We're going to be underdogs in Eugene. We'll be underdogs against SC. Let's embrace it. Okay, but remember one thing. I am guilty as charged of taking receipts. Now's not the time to collect on those receipts, but believe you me, there will be a time to collect on those receipts, and we will have our day in December and January. And everyone that said certain things about us, they are going to feel the wrath of the mighty Bruins.
Feel the wrath. They will. Ride or die. UCLA is number 11 in the country. I can't even believe I'm saying that. Give me your thoughts, brother. This is incredible stuff for people that have been covering the Bruins now for a couple of years.
I don't think I can end it any better than what Jamal just said. So I think that's the way to end it. I think it's a beautiful thing where we're at. There's a lot to still be done, work to still be done, but it's exciting time for this team, exciting time for this city, exciting time for this fans. And I'll just say, everyone show out on the next home game, because the Rose Bowl is going to be rocking and the LAFB network will be there, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for having me on. Always a blast. Go Bruins.
Go Bruins is right. We may be up in Outson. I'm thinking about taking a trip up to Oregon for the next game, so we'll keep you guys posted on that. Bruin Bible, what a freaking weekend this was. We're number 11 in the country. Make sure to tune in to the Believe in LA Football podcast with Ride or Die and Jamal Madney. Make sure to tune into all of our stuff on LA Football Network. Bruin Bible, we are officially